Okay. Woo! I really need to clean my wedding band. You a jewelry guy? Do you wear any jewelry at all?
I have a friend in the diamond business.
I've always been an accessory guy. I love rings because my hands kind of look like flippers. Like you see, I have this big, ugly flipper hand. So I like a little bling, but I feel like my 1 year anniversary is coming up and I haven't cleaned this thing yet. So I'm thinking once annually may be a good idea. I used to watch Gems TV, Home Shopping Network. Like when I was in high school, even like I always used to, when I was a little kid, I'd go through my mom and my grandmother's jewelry. I just love it for some reason. And even in high school, I watched like Home Shopping Network where they were selling like jewelry. I didn't buy much of it. I don't want to say I didn't buy any of it, but I didn't buy much of it. It was like a falling auction. It was like a game. Like you would try to guess how low the price was going to go. Hi. Hans has joined the broadcast.
Yeah, I mean, Price is Right.
What?
That's what Price is Right was.
You're trying to guess the price.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't necessarily like constantly falling. Like what they would do would say, okay, this ring is $10,000. Now it's $9,000.
Right.
Now it's $8,500. Wait, it's gone.
Yeah.
What's it gonna be? And it come back, it'd be like $40. So you'd be
Right.
like, oh my God, I gotta buy it. It was $10,000.
Yeah.
That was my favorite. That was my favorite thing. Oh my God, so much to talk about. We are trying to be organized here at Jacob V Weekly. We're trying to take copious notes. We are live on YouTube right now, which is a new thing we're trying. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to do the show live every time in a way that I want to do it. Things are in the works. We've had literally dozens of responses I've gotten to the last couple episodes, which is kind of just like a double launch, really. It was like an intro episode that we were just experimenting with and then a full episode. But attitudes have been really great. Feedback's been really great. My brother had a lot of opinions about what he didn't want us to talk about. So that was great. So I have some notes here. I want to start with Joe. You wanted to talk about the Loop Trolley. A little background here in St. Louis. We have this really cool hip area allegedly called the Loop, and historically there was a trolley, like a cable car, and they've been spending all kinds of money and ruining everyone's lives, putting in another one, and then it was going to go bankrupt because nobody was going. Explain.
The Loop Trolley. Do you like it?
Oh,
It wasn't. Yeah. Yeah. It was kind of spearheaded by a really wealthy part of the,
a lot of
St.
the
Louis
business
community.
owners
Yeah.
down there, a lot of the property owners, that Joe Edwards fella,
Joe Edwards
that
is
who's
right.
like the mastermind of the whole thing, and so forth. No, I've never been on it. It seemed like a cool idea. I don't know if it ever seemed as cool of an idea as it looked like a problem or a complicated process, because it took a long time. I was working down there at the time, and so the main drag on Delmar and the Loop was always under construction. It seemed really hazardous for some of the storefronts and stuff down there. But I don't know. Seeing it run was always cool. It ran all the way down to Bolivar, I think, or whatever, down to the History Museum at the north side of Forest Park. So
It's only about a mile long. I actually didn't realize Joe Edwards So Edwards opened Blueberry Hill,
Right.
a bar music club.
right,
You know,
he's the guy with the ponytail.
Yeah.
That was best friends with Chuck Berry or
that
whatever.
bowling alley and the pageant.
Sure.
concert.
Peanut bowl.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move this.
So I guess he put a lot of money into the, but it's kind of a joke because there's so much traffic that goes through that area.
Yeah.
And people need that space. And another one of the funny things, not funny, but it's so people who ride their bikes up and down Delmar, they're collapsing because of the tracks. Their wheels are getting caught in the tracks.
Yeah, they're huge tracks. Really, really disruptive. Can you do me a favor? Can you go over to the color box and creep down the gain on this microphone just a pinch? Just maybe like a 9 o'clock. We're live, folks. We are DIY. We are do-it-yourself podcast ready. That's perfect, Joe. Thank you. You didn't touch anything?
No, there's no gain.
Yeah, there is. It's the pre-vol, second red knob, next to the master knob. Just put it down to like 9 o'clock. Good. Thank you. Thank you. You could return to your post. We were in the middle of a conversation, but we're doing it live, baby. Making it happen. I think that's going to be a lot better. I sounded my sibilance. So this is Hans. This is my honey boo boo chi here. My kitten is going to be purring right into the microphone. It's going to be great. So yeah, Loop Trolley. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen because I thought it was going to go bankrupt, and they were like, "No, it can't," because then they were going to have to take all those tracks out. Because, like you said, you can't just leave them there. They're hazardous. They're disruptive. They're kind of. They don't even look like the most modern technology for that. There's no way that that's the best way to do that.
I think everything Joe's done up to this point has been, really great for the loop, but it's so random, and it's been like a 10-year process putting it together, and it's just so
Has it been that long?
inefficient. It's been that long. It's so inefficient to.
That's the thing, and it's. I don't know how much it costs to ride, but not enough people were riding it because it's not really a path that you would. It doesn't make sense to use as like public transportation,
Yeah.
like how it was originally. That doesn't make sense.
It's a $51 million project.
Listen, I can't hear that. I can't hear that right now because that's
Yeah.
so much larger of a number than the kind of money that I worry about every day. I can't think about that.
And it's-
I need to go ride it if it
it's-
costs that much.
It's funded by federal grants,
Oh yeah,
but
tax abatements, straight up cash.
no one ever asked for it. That's what is so
That's
funny.
the thing.
No one ever wanted this
Yeah,
thing. And
it's a
so
big
in the
old
way.
expensive operation making something nobody wants.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good. So we're solving that problem. That's out of here. Joe, last week when we talked about the debate, we talked about 400 miles of Trump's border wall that he was celebrating that they had built, apparently, which I hadn't heard about up until that point. And just for perspective, I asked you to compile some things that I may notice that are know of, or that you could explain to me that are 400 miles from here, because I really can't visualize how far that is off the top of my head. So 400 miles of wall is equivalent to, what do you got?
We've got the Alexander Lyle House.
Mhm.
The
Where's that?
it is. Let's see. Let's investigate. Actually,
Doing
I'll
it
pull up-
live, folks.
We're doing it live. I'm sorry.
No. I love it. Are you
Alright.
kidding? I think you're the only person I've been able to talk to in person all day, too, for real. So this is fabulous.
Fill in some time here. Let me pull up this page.
Great. Great.
Yeah.
So what was the guy's name? Alexander what?
Alexander. It's the Alexander Lyle House.
I was
That's
hoping
actually-
I'd get like things I would know already, like the Sears Tower or like the Eiffel Tower. I have no idea how many 400 is. Alexander Lyle?
Yeah, and then you've got the Franz Siegel statue.
I don't even know that one.
These are all very random historical.
So are
sites.
they far away? Like what states are they in mostly?
Well, let me pull up here. So we've
Doing it
got-
live.
So I've got
We're jamming. Alexander Lyle House. Coming at you live.
all right.
Yeah.
We've got Lincoln's home.
Oh, good. So that's
That's a one.
that's one of them. So Lincoln's home in,
Illinois.
oh, what is that place called though?
That is
It's up Bloomington Normal. Is it Springfield?
the sorry, right here.
So Abe Lincoln's house, for example,
That's
middle of
It's
Illinois.
Springfield. It's near Springfield. yeah.
Springfield, Illinois. Is that like halfway to Chicago from here? Is that
Yeah.
like most of the way?
It's not 400 miles. That's not even 400 miles. But that's
300
at least-
something.
That's at least
Great.
290. I think
Okay,
maybe.
so I've never been to Texas and to see the border, but I'm just trying to wonder if like 400 miles is something worth celebrating, right?
No. Well, I mean, I don't believe honestly that 400 miles is all he has left. There's just no way.
No, not left that he had built. That's what I thought was
He
weird.
only built 400 miles.
He said that we had 400 miles of new wall, and I don't know if that's in the past 4 years. I don't know if that was just that week. He didn't mention. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's the thing. I have no idea. Okay, so we're gonna have to look deeper into this. I didn't know that it was gonna be such a kerfuffle.
Sorry, it was like
No, not you. I'm just thinking like to put that into perspective. No, so that's what he said last week at the debate was he was just celebrating 400 miles of new wall, and he didn't mention how recent that piece was, or if that's all that we're talking about.
400 miles is about 5 hours of driving. It's gonna be probably right around from here to Nashville, and it's not that far. I mean, I did that drive, back and forth all the time when I was like 19.
So remind me that we'll do those calculations for next week of exactly how much border there is and what percentage maybe that 400-mile chunk would be. I just one thing I wrote down in my notes that I was still thinking about from last week. That was early on, so that was closer to then. We have had a crazy week of news and events and shifts in my own life personally. Just in the pace of my everyday, I'm much more physically exhausted now than I was last week, but psychologically, I'm much more stimulated. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy.
How was your first day back at school?
So I work in a school, and we're back in person, in part, during this COVID-19 pandemic, and so that's a big part of a thing I think about all the time. Of course, is schools and how schools play into that, because that's my work environment. And it's been pleasantly quiet. The kids are really enjoying being back in the building.
Really?
Nothing's been too crazy, but it is uncomfortable in the terms of trying to figure out social distancing and keeping, we have some rooms that just there's a demand to have more kids in there than we're comfortable having. So that's across the board. I think all schools are going to experience that. But moving back to a more typical thing is really beneficial for our kids that are opting to come in person to learn that way, because a lot of them really need that. So, yeah, it's a strange time. And I'm just noticing, myself, and I try to think about what other people are stressed out about too, because everyone is coming into their conversations in public right now with a higher level of stress than they would normally, because things are just weird, right? And as it's getting colder, some of the statistics are rising as far as cases, hospitalizations, even. Deaths are down, I think, still. But overall, there's just a lot of concern there. But in the school culture and everything, we very much, we're about making a safe and stimulating environment for our kids every day, and for the kids that we're getting to do that with, it's really good for them. And for them, we haven't had any
incidents
or concerns yet. It's only a couple days in as we're recording this.
What is the age group?
So the campus I'm on is typically pre-K through 8, but it's also we don't have all of those kids back in. We gave families the option pre-K through 5th, as most schools in the St. Louis City area at least are doing right now. And and not all of those kids have chosen to come back in person either. Some of them are still doing remote learning from home.
Do they have the same teacher? As the
No,
kids
no,
are
that's the thing. Is
separate?
I'm
It's very
having
complicated.
Yeah, nobody wants to be the teacher that has virtual kids and in-person kids at the same time, and we don't want to put that on anybody.
Yeah.
So, and that's something we talked about in our very first episode, I think, was sort of that kind of issue. So as of right now, that's still, not the plan. But I'm finding that, I've been trying to feel part of what we're talking about in this election season. This show is not about the election. This show is not about politics necessarily, but it's something that we've been talking a lot about because it is just a couple weeks away. I've been trying to feel out my friends and family and people I know and figure out exactly what are the things that they're really stressed out about every day. And very little of it is the stuff you hear about, for example, in the debate or in, so much of the political media coverage and the sort of Twitter news cycle. Like, half the news is about Twitter. I don't understand what that's about. I thought, I was hoping it was going to die. That hasn't been the case. So, I know I'm feeling like a lot of consumer panic. You know what I mean? I've really been thinking to like liquidate all of my, investments or whatever, and to pay off my debt to live as cheaply as possible, just because of the uncertainty of the kind of state of things that we live in. A lot of people have this concern about their job security, or they're still unemployed. You know what I mean? Because I don't think restaurants ever got back up to 100% capacity, at least in the city.
Illinois just shut down.
Illinois is shutting back down. They're closing bars and restaurants early. They're only offering, they're only offering carry out, or is it a capacity on
Well, I know
dine-in?
the Penthouse is offering carry out.
I'm gonna let you hang on that one. For the salad bar at the strip club. Strip club salad bar.
Yeah, and Pop's nightclub is going to be closed
That'll probably
down. You can smoke in front of it.
I don't know if they'll be open. They're usually like open almost 24 hours, right?
Yeah, but now they're only open maybe 0 hours.
Yeah, I always wonder about people that don't have that geographical knowledge that here in St. Louis, there's some stuff that's legal on the other side of the river in Illinois that's literally right there that's not legal on this side of the river. So all of our casinos and strip clubs are like a baseball's throw away, but technically in another state.
If you got to stretch the night out, you go over to Illinois. It's just the way it is.
But then cigarettes and stuff are way cheaper over here. So
yeah.
there's like this trade-off of like this whole underbelly of
exchange of goods and services.
I don't know if people are still trafficking cigarettes in 2020.
No.
I don't know if the demand is there for illicit cigarettes. I don't know if they're that much cheaper.
For 18-year-olds, because they raised the age.
Oh yeah, it's 21 in the city, I think.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So now 19-year-olds are coming up to me asking.
So
to
some of
buy
this is
cigarettes.
hyper local, but so maybe the strip club still has its salad bar buffalo wings to go. I'm not sure. I haven't checked in on them, especially since the pandemic started. Other crazy news. Oh my God, I have 3 headlines here that are just like boom, 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 absolutely crazy.
They're all from Twitter.
What?
So they're all from
They're
Twitter.
all from Twitter because that's all that can be on the. That's the thing too, is the news on Twitter is about stuff that people said on Twitter.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what
Yeah.
makes me crazy. Is the president tweeted, Kim Kardashian tweeted, Joe Biden tweeted. I don't know. Does Joe Biden tweet? I don't think Joe Biden tweets.
Joe Biden tweeted, it's bad.
Did he tweet?
He's not a tweeter.
He's not. He needs to start. I would love if he did like the OJ tweets where it's just like the video
Yeah.
of himself talking, because he's not going to put himself, because he knows he's more charming on camera than if he's typing,
Right.
and especially if he's making typos. Apophis, I think is how you say that, or Apophis, the god of chaos asteroid, is speeding up, increasing the likelihood of it hitting Earth in 2068. I just heard that on my way here. How am I supposed to go on with my life when I didn't ask for it? It was on the radio. They said, out of nowhere, the god of chaos asteroid is accelerating towards Earth. So then, of course, I had to look it up and mention it to you.
It's Epiphis, and also
With an A at the beginning?
yeah, it's one of those AE situations where they're in.
Great, Apophis.
Yeah, Epiphis. Is this something you're excited about? Or is this
No.
something
Well,
you're-
you know what's crazy I was thinking about is 2068. I'm 29.
Oh my gosh.
So that's almost 50 years from now, right? 48 years from now? That's not a bad timeline.
You're heading out, man.
I mean, I'm going to be heading out around that time if I make it that long anyway. Why not be here for it? You know what I mean? Set up my lawn chair, pack the igloo with ice and sparkling Shasta.
I have to say that's something that I fantasize about frequently. I would love a global disaster just so, because like academically and in terms
We're in
of,
one.
Yeah, yes, I'm kind of, but like I would really love to go full survivor, because academically I'm this current system of capitalism, I'm completely useless. But if everything shuts down, I think, I've got a decent immune system, I don't get cold.
You're like
I'm much more useful. Like in the instance of Survivor, I'm Mel Gibson, and the
what's that
instance
kid's
of
name from Zombieland?
Jesse Eisenberg.
Eisenberg.
I don't
That's kind of
feel like-
that was his approach. He was all about like cardio and staying lean and eating
Yeah.
yogurt.
I mean, he still kind of took an academic approach. I mean, he was keeping a journal. I'm not much of a journaler.
You're not a
you know?
journaler?
Yeah, I think I would probably my hair would turn darker, I'm assuming.
I think that's not a good plan for me personally. I don't necessarily want to survive the end because I need a fistful of pills and
Diet Coke.
and a breathing apparatus to sleep every night.
Yeah, I have one of
So
those, yeah.
not dangerous pills. I mean, I take vitamin D. I take some, preventative measures. I have a couple prescriptions I'm on. That's not what I'm saying. It's not a fistful of narcotics necessarily, but definitely my move is more not to have to survive in a resourceless hellscape.
Maybe that's the product of you not having to survive in a hellscape, because your
No,
body's
I have a very high standard of
overcompensating.
living.
No,
Very high standard of living. I don't do well outdoors.
yeah, toilet paper is a big one for me.
I go toilet paper, wet wipes. We're not going to have this conversation right
Yeah,
now.
No, I've been a shower the
That'll
last
be
few days. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
But so yeah, I mean, again, all this luxury down here. I don't know that surviving the end would be a good idea, but a fast. They're saying the asteroid. There's a difference. The asteroid is traveling in such a path and then being influenced by the gravitational pull of the sun in such a way that it's accelerating its course towards Earth. I think it's impressive that they can predict that 48 years out. But that's where we're at with that. Also, you sent me this and I had seen it earlier and it was so good. I had to put it on my show prep. Woman, singular, allegedly posed as prosecutor and dropped charges against herself. If we start a segment called like G of the Day, that's today's winner because
I thought it was just a joke. It was like something on The Onion, and just her face in the
That's-
picture
yeah.
is so sassy.
well, because she
That's
was
hilarious.
still in character, I think. She just come out the courtroom. She was a prosecuting attorney. No, I love that. So this woman got charged with. Do we know what she got charged with?
Lawsuit filed against the county. So she's falsifying a judge's decision to waive a filing fee in a lawsuit she filed against the county, and faked an order in a child custody case involving her child and a family member.
Oh, so she impersonated a judge?
There seems to be 3 situations happening here. So we've got
That's why she had to crack the code
yeah.
and impersonate, because she had to just do somebody else's job for a whole day. That's a lot of work to do in disguise.
That's a lot of work to do sarcastically.
Ironically.
accused of falsifying a judge's decision to waive a filing fee in a lawsuit.
So she pretended to be the judge and was going to waive a fee that the court was going to charge her
Her.
real life as the person.
Filed against, so it was something she filed against the county,
And there was a fee for it that she
Yeah.
was going to waive.
which is vague. They're not telling us what that is. And then, but also, and she faked an order in a child custody case involving her child and a family member.
Mm.
She faces 1 charge of false personation and 6 counts of falsifying physical evidence. Her criminal past includes drug possession and stalking.
No.
Yeah.
What's
Who
her name?
Who do you think she's stalking?
I don't think she's stalking anybody right now.
Her name is Lisa Landon
Lisa
of Littleton.
Lisa Landon of Littleton.
Yeah.
Jacob V. Weekly's G of the Day, impersonating a judge, waiving fees, getting her paper, boo-boo.
She plans to avoid jail. Okay, no. Landon's plans to avoid jail when Ari went
Awry.
awry.
Oh my God. This is the literacy crisis we're facing in our country,
Yeah,
folks.
you know.
The
I went to
plans
an art
went
school.
Ari Shafir.
Ari went when a forensic examiner who's supposed to perform a competency evaluation on her noticed the charges were dropped. Now I'm gonna mess up everything because you made fun of me.
No, you're good. You're doing good. So, Lisa
Landon. Of
Lisa
Littleton.
Landon of
Littleton.
Littleton Bergstein.
Mhm.
And
All right.
oh my God, some local news that's just tragic. Ed Brown jumped to his death. If you're St. Louis and you don't know who I'm talking about, or if you're not from St. Louis because you won't know who I'm talking about, we have one of our local heavily advertised personal injury law firms.
Yeah.
Brown and Brown?
Brown and Crouppen.
They're no Brown and Brown.
Okay.
There's 2. There's Brown and Crouppen and there's Brown and Brown, but Brown and Brown is who Ed Brown worked for. That was his firm with his brother.
Fact checking.
I did it already.
Yeah, you're right.
So, so Ed Brown was kind of like their mascot, right? It was his law firm. He liked to be on the camera, but he happened to have an eye patch, which made him super recognizable. And tragically, Monday afternoon, leapt from the 11th floor office, landed on I think a 3rd-story roof, of course, DOA on that one, and we were all speculating, like when a local celebrity kind of has a tragic suicide situation, you always wonder what was going on or what they were into, and of course,
What jokes can you derive from this?
God, it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we shared some really insensitive gifs
Yeah.
between one another, talking about this earlier, and then, but then the family came out and explained that, or maybe the firm came out and said that he had expressed that he was sick and dying, and that was why he was motivated to take his own life, which is so tragic.
Yeah.
But just, my goodness, like everybody I talked to that day after it happened said, dude, did you hear about Ed Brown? I'm like, yeah, he effing jumped off a roof, like everybody I talked to.
Yeah, it's just I don't know what to
Uh-huh.
compare it to
Because
for
it's
people
not
from other-
like I remember like celebrities dying, like
Yeah.
you know, I mean, go back as far as you want to go, where it's like a shocking thing just because everybody knows them,
Yeah.
and then so this is more local, but it's so saturated locally, like local TV. Sports when they get the local ads, local billboards. He's on the side of buses all over my neighborhood.
It would be like if Tom Carvel died in New Jersey. I don't know where that
I
originates
see. That's a
from.
weird thing to say because I
Yeah.
don't know either of those things or
Tom
places.
Carvel, the Carvel. You don't know Carvel ice cream cakes?
No.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah.
Why would I know Carvel ice cream cakes? So okay, so apparently in New Jersey there's a guy that makes ice cream cakes, and you're
Tom
saying if
Carvel.
he died, that would be a shocking circumstance.
You might be familiar with the Patton Oswalt joke. You can't cut those cakes with a fucking lightsaber. I think it goes. No. Okay. Anyway, sorry.
They sound delicious.
They are.
I had an ice cream cake for Keena's birthday a couple weeks ago. Delicious.
It's probably Carvel.
Carvel.
Yeah.
They make all the
Carvel.
ice cream cakes.
That's Tom Carvel.
But he's one guy?
Yeah.
And you're
he's-
saying
yeah.
that if he died, I would feel the same way that I feel about Ed Brown?
No, it's people up in. It's a big thing on the East Coast.
Really?
Yeah. They
I'm
can't-
not as cultured as I look.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Next up.
We've been all over the place. There is some serious stuff afoot, though. We have, on a lighter note, I checked out The Walking Dead: World Beyond.
Is it
No.
is it game?
I'm just no. It's like a third show. So they have The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead. I never really watched Fear the Walking Dead. I'm caught up on The Walking Dead, but because I feel like I just have to see it through, I don't watch a lot of TV. But so I just heard one of the YouTube guys I watch talking about it and seemed to really like it. So we did check it out. Actually, really good. I just wrote some notes down. The main girl who plays Iris, the young woman of color who's the lead, is totally bae. She can totally get it. There's like a gay soldier supporting character who is just total daddy vibes and total heartstrings. Really great, totally entertaining. There's only a handful of episodes. It's supposed to be kind of launching a lot of the backstory that we're going to need for the Rick Grimes movies that they're apparently still doing. And I just want to advocate for if you're totally burnt out on that whole universe, but maybe you liked it at one point, the show's kind of worth a shot.
Alaya Royale is the name of the actress.
It's probably Aaliyah.
Aaliyah. Yes.
Yeah. So she's great in it. She looked a little annoying in some of the previews, but the actual show is really well acted and great. And there's enough catchy gotcha moments of plot twist without so much of the savage like jump out zombie gore as much. There's of course going to be some of the zombie gore signature to the franchise, but again, that's something I caught up on in the past week. And if you don't know what to stream next because you've been at home for 7 months, check it out. Walking Dead: World Beyond, totally not as bad as some stuff you could watch.
I feel like they're
great
just-
conflict, great lovely perspective on that whole universe. Yeah,
I apologize.
no, you're doing great.
I feel like they just keep, they keep rebooting the show with like a sexier and sexier cast. It seems like
Yeah, I mean, part of that's budget, part of that's
variety.
yeah, there's a
low
lot
on
of and there's also they do the thing where they hire attractive up and coming actors that look familiar but not necessarily exactly like somebody else.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are like, "Hey, aren't you?" but they're just kind of
No.
they have an amalgam of features that remind you of something familiar, which is nice. I think they were really attempting that with Fear the Walking Dead, but that one's really hard for me to get into. And a couple of the actors on that show, I don't understand what they're doing. It's like they're phoning it in, and I don't know why they're letting them, because I really love this new show. And I really love the main series, even though it's kind of emotionally abusive, and it's like an abusive relationship. I feel stuck to it, but I need it to end. I'm not gonna let it beat me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the finale of the most recent season of the mainline Walking Dead show was, I thought, actually really exciting. And we're kind of on a good uptick now that we've announced the conclusion. We know there's only gonna be like, did they say 2 more seasons or one big one?
Yeah. Did Rick die?
No. See, that's the thing.
Oh,
Is a lot of the people that you know from the show, they all think Rick died, but they never found his body. And
Knew it.
spoiler alert from like 4 years ago. But this girl Jadis, who she was with the landfill people, the people that lived in the landfill. I don't know if you ever made it that far, but she kept having this plot where she was talking on a walkie-talkie to a helicopter. Nobody knew what it was, and then she sees Rick's body and like offers him as a like
A
like a bargaining chip to the people in the helicopter that we really don't know anything about. At the time, we knew nothing about them at all. Now we know it's this place called the CRM, who's this group from the comics who are very highly organized, and we know that.
how does he travel as a celebrity? What brings value to his body? This is so
What do
frustrating.
you mean?
Like,
No. Oh,
as
in
a
the,
token
in the
of,
no,
of
because
peace.
that's
No.
what the CRM does is they collect specimens for tests, and they call them either an A or a B, and we still don't really know exactly what those mean. And
I'd
she
be an
kept
A.
telling them she had a B, and then she said, I have an A, but I really have them this time. She was planning on just ambushing the people in the helicopter because she had no other way out than like all her friends were dead, and she just wanted to go back to civilization because that's what the CRM is or whatever.
CRM.
Civic Republic or something. It's a
Maintenance.
trifecta of like communities or something. That's the thing. That's what this new show is about, is showing us them, because that is
The
where
lore of
they're teaching us about the
Yeah.
CRM in World Beyond, because that's where Rick was taken to when he last left the show. The last time we saw Rick, he left the show in a helicopter to go to a place that we've never seen really yet.
I actually really like that as a marketing tool when you have to if you want to fill in the cracks, you have to watch some of the shows.
Oh yeah, it's
That's
like,
cool.
but if you really want to know,
Yeah.
buy the super secret
Yeah.
Bundaroo. You know what I mean?
Right, the box set.
That'd be like if this weekly broadcast was just advertising. If you really want the good stuff,
Yeah, if you want to hear the
you
rest
gotta
of it.
come to my OnlyFans or
Yeah.
Patreon or whatever we would do. It depends on what the good stuff was.
Yeah, right.
The good stuff. It depends on the best market. Maybe it's Cameo. You let me know what you want.
The thing that this before we move on, the one thing that really the reason I couldn't stay on those shows was, it's the same problem I have with American Horror Story is they run out of tropes because they clearly just handpick horror movie moments and just throw them into the show. So he wakes up in the hospital, just like 28 days later or whatever and at this point it feels like all he can do is wake up in another hospital, just like a checkpoint in a video game. Just like,
And I think that's part of the thing too, is they're trying to pass time, so it's not picking up exactly from when that left, because the mainline show is jumped several years ahead of when Rick left the show.
right.
So, so again, I don't even know if any of the very kind people who have listened to this show so far, if they've ever watched any of that, if they're interested. But I wrote it down because I'm like, you know what, we should tell the people on the show, because I would tell my friends to watch it.
Yeah.
If I ever got to see them again, which isn't happening right now. You're in my quarantine bubble, by the way, so you better behave yourself.
Working on it. I think this is I think you should talk about the consumer
Oh, my
Panic.
consumer panic. We kind of mentioned that before. Just that there's a my personal feeling with like the election coming up and the markets are way down, and with COVID-19 and all the conflicting information everyone's always arguing about. I know my personal instinct is to liquidate all of my like retirement or whatever, and like pay off debt and like reduce my cost of living because of just the uncertainty, you know what I mean, and just the uncertainty of what the world's going to look like with if schools have to lock down again, if other types of businesses have to shut down again or permanently. Again, I'm thinking the whole thing is temporary, but like we're talking about, a lot of it is like that. And so I took some notes on some of this stuff. I see what you're referring to here, that I don't think people are acknowledging enough to each other that those feelings exist, that a lot of us have that anxiety. There are people that are also having anxiety about real life things that are not directly related to COVID-19, but they're going to be more complicated. If you're sick and dying in a hospital right now, your family just can't come see you, no matter what you're sick and dying of. You know what I mean? Because of the tight restrictions we have to have on our hospitals and whatnot. So, and there's just, I noticed that, yeah, go ahead.
I think the reason I wanted to bring that up was because there was a point that I wanted to make. I saw a CNN article I'm looking for right now that was really frustrating to me. It was, top 10 things on your COVID panic list. Like, it was something like that, or I think it was something like shops are gearing up for the next wave of COVID panic, and
Yeah.
that's very frustrating to me
Yeah.
because not only is this exploiting a marketing tool clearly, but like it's really frustrating to me
Dude, that's
because
crazy.
it's CNN, the God's gift of morality in the
Yeah.
news is telling people that is making up. I mean, sure, maybe in one part of the country there's still maybe some COVID grocery panic, but they're telling people that this is going to happen again. We need to all
It's
go
like they're
out and
creating it. It's
they're
like they
creating
want it
it.
to happen.
Yeah, and that is so frustrating to me
Yeah.
as a
And they
news
did
outlet.
that too when and again, I'm not a Trump guy, but they did that when in the media when he was sick, being like, "Oh, he's, this could be the worst day if you look at this model from this data or whatever for his illness or whatever." And I'm like, "Listen, let's just go with what we hear because let's not speculate." That's the one thing I want to tell everybody right now is do not speculate. It's not healthy. And bro, I wrote this down right there when it says too many cheat codes, bruh. That's okay. So what ruins a game is when someone is exploiting a feature, right? So let's say I'm playing Call of Duty. If I notice that this one gun is totally OP and broken, I'm going to use it all the time because I know it's going to do an unfair amount of damage because the game has that flaw, right? People are doing that all the time right now. Everything right now is refinance your house because rates are at crisis levels. You know what I mean? And mortgages are in
Yeah,
the twos.
do they use those buzzwords?
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And they everything is on the news is very much the news is totally hacked and broken. They know that they're going to get more ratings with sensational, biased, controversial stories than they are with more valuable updates. And so they're exploiting that. They're exploiting that for their version of XP, which is ratings, right? And it's the same way with people do that with money all the time. People do that with certain types of investments, or even with, you know, more actually criminal things in the background that people
Yeah.
do to exploit things like that. When you see a certain type of business explode all of a sudden, that's because someone's trying to
Capitalize, yeah.
exploit
Yeah.
a cheat code situation that they've identified in their business model or their opportunity, right? It'd be like if all of a sudden, I have a friend who one year, he said he moved to Florida for a summer to feed tree monkeys for 10 weeks, which there was
Okay.
some breed of monkey that were kept in some sort of a conservation establishment.
Mhm.
And he found out that if he worked there for that summer, he was going to get all this money back on his taxes. And he got like 10 grand back on his taxes the next year
Really?
because he went and fed tree monkeys for 10 weeks. I'm saying people love that stuff, and
Yeah.
people are addicted to it. People are addicted to, listen, you don't have to eat less pizza and work out every day if you just take this pill, or if you just do this surgery, or if you just, you know what I mean? And I'm not anti creative ways to address those types of issues you may have, but it's like, guys, we can't live our lives chasing the cheat codes all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that's exactly right. And I just also just really dislike because in the same commercials they're acting, they're talking about how much they hate it. They're like, these trying, horrible times. We're gonna bond
Oh my
together
God,
as a community.
The YouTube ads for
Chevrolet.
political candidates, either locally or regionally or nationally, are so crazy.
Yeah.
It's like it's like they're marketed to children. They use terrifying images with bright red filters over the opposition, whoever they're talking about. And I could totally hate the people they're talking about. It's not about that, but it's like I could totally dislike that person because of their demeanor and their policies. I don't need you to make them literally look like the devil on YouTube, like I'm a child. Like it's like anti-Semitic propaganda from 100 years ago with the exaggerated, insensitive cartoons. It's like, guys, what are we doing? You know what I mean? It's so childlike. And this is going to bring us to one of our things that I wanted to talk about is Kanye West and his presidential run has been in my my algorithms, as the kids say lately, with highlights from recent interviews and whatnot, and just how not crazy he seems compared to some of the other options
Really?
on the ticket. Dude, it's really crazy. Some of the things he talks about that are so important and so real that so few other people in politics talk about that way. You know what I mean? But obviously, like you were saying off mic earlier, is that he's so obviously mentally ill in some way, whether it's well treated or not. That I'm not a doctor,
Yeah.
but he speaks in a way that's so like we were talking about, like somebody like an Alex Jones or somebody who's so manic, and they'll bring in tangential information from all over the place, and they kind of talk about that in some of his stuff. He did a long form interview on a podcast recently that they kind of talked about how his brain works, and but it's really confusing because he'll jump from his presidential run to fashion to his arguments with the media, and it's very much um alarming in the ways that our president currently can be alarming, right? With his engagement with the media and slander and arguing with people on Twitter. But it's another. So now we have two candidates that are kind of like that, because apparently you can write in Kanye West in all 50 states is the last thing I heard.
Yeah.
And he's doing everything in service of God and in a way that he's attempting to be really selfless. But it's like he's obsessed with his faith in a way that's almost like, well, that's kind of just the new thing you're using to
There's something
to
selfish
build
about it.
your ego around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the unfortunate thing is that, I mean, and I have, mental, I have mental disabilities. I don't know about Jake, but
We all know.
Yeah. And I think it's unfortunate because there is a stigma, unfortunately, in politics when it comes to mental
That's the thing.
health. But in art, it's almost like not. It's not
almost like you
necessarily.
need it.
It's not. Yeah, you need it.
It's
but
almost like you need it. It's almost like when you look at some of our most celebrated figures, Kurt Cobain is a great obvious example.
they're destroyed.
They're
human beings.
totally wrecked. I'm older now than Kurt Cobain ever was, and everyone always acts like, oh, he should have liked his career more. He should have been more appreciative of his career, or people get mad when they find out he didn't like playing Smells Like Teen Spirit live. I'm like, guys, he was a kid. He was 27, I think, when he
If you really think about it,
when he died. He was a child.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When I was 27, I had a very serious alcohol problem. I was keeping my life together. I was making moves, but it was like not easy. And so this guy had maybe tens of millions of dollars, and in the 90s, which was like much more money now, and he was a child, and he had a drug problem and a very under addressed mental health problem, and
He would be a
from
lot
poverty.
like Kanye now.
So, I mean, and that's just one example.
Yeah.
So, but it's funny how you mentioned that, because that's part of the problem with Biden right now is people are concerned about his, I don't even know if you can say senility or if he's experiencing any level of dementia or any diminished capacity with his cognitive function at all. People worry about that. And with Donald Trump, we also worry about how his age, and like we talked about last week, maybe childhood-led exposure. I'm not going to let it go. And things of that nature maybe affect his persona. We have a much younger guy here in one of these third-party candidates, being this independent in Kanye West, but he's expressing the manic kind of outward kind of confrontational issues that Donald Trump has with some of the questionable mental health concerns like Biden is experiencing also. So that's very interesting. I also don't know anything about Joe Jorgensen. Not going to hold my breath on that one. Libertarianism is weird culturally. I mean, it's weird not to believe that stuff, but it's weird in its role in our culture.
It's a nihilist dream.
Kind of. It's just so many people I know that really want a viable third-party option and really lean on libertarianism because there's a lot of great things that they advertise. They advertise this small government, pro-freedom. You don't have to pay that much in taxes. You can have your guns and your weed and your gay marriage and whatever, all that stuff. But they're looking at it out of context, right? I think that's a great example of when we talk about privilege in a way that's negative.
That's right.
Is that, oh, you have the privilege of, some would say, throwing your vote away. Because I'm not going to say that you're throwing your vote away if you choose to vote.
You're going off the rails here, Jake.
Yeah, I'm not gonna start fights with all my cousins on Facebook right now, or whatever. But
Thanksgiving's right around the corner.
yeah, I can't wait for the Zoom Thanksgiving call. We can talk about libertarianism. But that's part of the thing is that we don't talk about how that's kind of opting out of the system. You don't have to commit to the complicated issues on either side of the aisle if you go for this other option that, at best is going to get 10% of the vote and, is really exclusionary to some of the real concerns. The real concerns, like we talked about last week, or maybe a couple weeks ago, I identified myself as a progressive liberal but I'm not invested in the system. And what I meant by that was, um, really the enemy here that a lot of us, younger generation, are identifying is this political establishment that's been in place for so long. It's bipartisan. It's people that want to maintain the status quo because really they've been fed and amplified by the corporate lobbyists, and they just want to keep that system in place because
Yeah.
they get their perfect health insurance and their modest salary for doing their role, and then if they do that for 2 terms, most of them get that for the rest of their life, and then they get all this lobbyist money and they can write a book and it's great, right? And I'd love that. I would love if that was my career path. That sounds like a sweet gig. But the what I meant by that last week was that I couldn't go to either side of the aisle with full confidence because in the two-party thing, I'm supposed to. It's too big of a group.
Yeah.
It's too big of a group. If I care about even a dozen issues that I feel like one candidate is going to be better for, that candidate's also going to represent um, either aspect of this political establishment that is really anti-common people. It's not. It does not have our best interest in mind. It wants people like us to be stuck in this kind of wage slave dynamic, cranking out tax revenue so they can have this inflated administrative economy where it's not even necessarily about the decisions they make. It's just about the parameters they're trying to keep in place so they can have the power that they're used to.
Yeah. But you don't want to reinvent the wheel.
Why would they? They have the best of everything. You know what I mean? They have an apartment in DC where they can go and be away from their family. They have a nice house back in their state that they can go and they can be a respected member of their community.
Yeah.
And then they get a totally decent pension and premium health benefits, and then whatever secret kind of third dimensional money they get on the side from special interest groups. You know what I mean? And so I totally understand why that exists, but it's because I think that that's a cheat code, right? Like we were talking about, that's one of those things that they figure out, oh, I can go here, I can be a public servant, get that out of my system, and then I stick around long enough, I figure out how things work, and if I start to benefit from that in any kind of a way, I can exploit that to the fullest extent. There's forms of legal market speculation and things that you hear about all the time that are controversial, but people that have previewed knowledge of legislative or judicial decisions ahead of time and will adjust their investments accordingly, in a way that's totally sneaky, but typically pretty legal, depending on how they do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're doing. I needed to take a breath. So, I mean, that's the problem that I think most people are experiencing right now. Is no matter what your core system of issues is that really motivates you to go out and vote, if that's something that you choose to do, there's no one candidate that's going to meet 100% of those needs, no matter how short your list is. You know what I mean? Because the offices are just arbitrary and, like we said, monarchical and outdated in a way that I just hope that people don't let the face of Biden or Trump or Kanye or Joe Jorgensen, whoever it is, Gary Johnson, what is Aleppo, any of those people, I hope they don't let it kind of dictate relationships or things in their real life, because what they really should be fighting with their racist uncles about is the racism and not the figures that they think maybe or maybe doesn't represent racism. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I saw a guy yesterday, a friend of mine who's an activist and a musician and a really powerful dude. He posted something on, I think it was Facebook, the place where we all go to argue, about, how, as far as he's concerned, Trump would be a better candidate than Biden because of his perspective on past legislative issues that Biden has been on the wrong side of history on. There's crime bills that Kamala and Joe have both been players in that have been disproportionately negative towards people of color, people in poverty, and on the other hand, you have Trump, who doesn't have 47 years of a voting record that to be responsible for, and he does his little prison reform with Kim Kardashian and whatnot.
He didn't. Trump never voted, is that what you said?
No, I'm saying he doesn't have 47 years in Congress of
Oh,
a
yeah.
voting record of whereas we have 47 years of Joe Biden has things to answer for. We don't have that for Trump. So I get people being attracted to, look, this guy's actually done less harm to certain communities because he didn't in place and then
I'm sure there's a
enforce.
word or an analogy for that that's used, probably a saying, but it's just like complete laziness, and people are just like, yeah,
Oh
like,
yeah, he's
he
so
has
not
no
involved.
history.
He has no political experience before his presidency, so
Yeah.
he is less of a problem,
He's
right?
more qualified.
Is really kind of what that argument boiled down to
Yeah.
because he's right. I mean, I think Kamala is a lovely, articulate, bright woman of color, and she's the kind of people that I'd love to see in leadership for a lot of reasons, except for, she's a cop. She put
Yeah.
people in prison for bags of weed. Like, whether or not you smoke weed or like weed or think it should be legal, I don't know that clinking the bars behind somebody who has a family because of a bag of weed is actually like the way I want to move the country in. So she has to answer for that. Maybe
Yeah.
apologize. Maybe correct some of those wrongs. You know what I mean? But that doesn't rule her out necessarily in my book either. But it is a huge problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I just don't want people to I want people to set themselves up for success and don't set your life up in a way where you are obsessing over a person that you're never going to meet, who doesn't care about you, and who actually doesn't represent even all of the ideologies of their political party or yours. Even if you vote for a guy and you agree with him on a bunch of stuff, Trump doesn't actually care, for example, about all the things that he represents. You know what I mean? And we've seen that with his controversies with the military and with, all sorts of service people that, I mean, he just doesn't necessarily understand the kind of selflessness that most public servants at least claim to be involved in. And so he's going to have that disconnect from those people. He doesn't have like the cultural backing of the military establishment like former presidents of the Republican Party did, because that's not his background. His background is very urban, East Coast, flashy. It's all casino money and Miss America. He's not. He doesn't represent everything that the people that vote for him care about, and nor would Biden to the people that vote for him. He doesn't represent everything that those people care about either, and that's what makes it so hard. Is because you really have to try to fight the battles in a way that you're going to see tangible gains for yourself and your family and your life on an everyday basis. You know what I mean?
Which is such a minimal part of their whole policy.
It has nothing to do with them.
Oh,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? And especially if we all had it our way and, we were represented locally or regionally by people that we felt like had our best interests in heart, that we wouldn't need to care so much about the president. But it's almost like we removed ourselves from the boring parts of our government to talk about the celebrity parts. I mean,
It's I think David Foster Wallace said it, not to go 100% white guy, but he was
I don't
like,
know who that is.
good. He famous writer. He does Infinite Jest.
Mhm.
He said, I'm not quoting this, but this is in summary from what I remember. He said, it was an interview. He said, if you're really doing the right thing, if you're really actually doing, it's not very sexy and it's
No.
not very cool.
It's slow.
It's slow.
Not flashy at all. But I mean, the 21st century, at least, we're all about that. I think it's probably been growing since politics have been kind of sensationalized since we started televising them. Yeah, but
charisma and sexiness drive,
that's what we care about now.
and that is it's so frustrating. But I was gonna say that I think what you're saying is, most level-headed people are having this conversation you're having right now, and I think,
or I hope they are. But that's part of why we started the show, is because
Right.
people are not having conversations in real scenarios, in real life, the way we did pre-COVID.
yeah,
I used to just talk about this at the Heavy Anchor
yeah,
with the same three people every time I went there, and we would vape and eat a frozen pizza. You know what I mean? Like, but I don't get to see those people, and so I have all this
Listen to the
curiosity
local vapors.
built up in my spirit that, I mean, I worry about people just laying in bed, reading the headlines, getting all their news from Twitter, and then thinking that's the world. But then also there's people that think all the problems are really only on Twitter, and that's a problem too.
Well, the level-headedness, like this kind of level-headedness, is so absent in the media.
I don't know that I like that term.
level-headedness.
Ugh.
Okay, well,
I appreciate it though. It's you mean it positively.
I mean, it's so. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean.
You're doing
I can
great.
see what you're
You're doing
saying.
great.
What I mean is less, one-sided opinion. It's so absent in the media that it feels like no one is saying it. Like it feels like no one is.
Because it's not sexy.
Yeah, and people are
Like you said.
thinking that, okay, the media is saying it. Those are the smart people. I need to appropriate that because I'm smart. But I mean, that's such a far-fetched, that's really judging the character of a lot of people, but I feel
Oh
like,
yeah, that's assuming a level of maturity that most people don't have.
yeah. Well, and I just think at least hear people out. I don't want to be the white guy talking about hear them out,
No, but I think that's really important because that's the thing too, is that I want people to make sure that they're making decisions and expressing themselves from a place of genuine concern. And genuine concern is not aggressive or ugly. Genuine concern is heartfelt and deliberate and honest. And so if you're worried about a specific issue, right? Be honest about why you're worried about that issue, and don't, I think we start with name calling a lot. It's really easy to call somebody like me a snowflake or a libtard. It's not
just the name liberal is becoming. So I watched this one ad. It was, I don't know who the
that's the
candidate
thing.
was.
It's like the language. You can't even identify with any of the language. Like I seriously got called out on the Facebook page very politely by a guy who actually listened to the show and wanted to know what I meant by a specific comment. But I was like, you know what? You're right. I don't like calling myself a progressive liberal, even though that's kind of where a lot of my ideologies are, because it's been taken over. It's like what Josh Homme said about stoner rock. He said, I just was making music and then it became a genre that he doesn't necessarily identify with. You were saying, I'm sorry.
Well, it's prog lib is actually, you're gonna sound like a noob unless you call
it's prog lib. I'm a prog lib, bro.
You gotta be, it's prog lib. I actually wasn't gonna say anything, but I agree. It's, these, once you get a label put on you, you have to be held accountable for everybody in that.
That's the thing,
party.
and it just doesn't make sense because nobody lives in that big of a group. I mean, even the state of Missouri is so greatly diverse from different towns and their size and their regional economy and exactly how they support themselves. I mean, those are vastly different for different types of people in different areas, as they should be. I mean, and it doesn't make sense to have one person that's supposed to represent 300 something million people who all live vastly, even in one state. Even everyone acts like California is just one way. 40 million people live there. Some of them live on farms. Some of them live in mountainous areas. Some of them live, yes, on the beach. Some of them live right across the border from Mexico, and some live in dense forest areas way up north where it's all vastly different. Those cultures are all going to be different. And just because it's one big chunk of land with a border around it doesn't mean that even those people are going to agree to stuff on that level. And that's, just a 10% of the population or whatever, 8%.
Yeah, and they're not really voting, or hopefully.
And that's the other thing. That's the other thing I wanted to mention is that I keep seeing again in Twitter, in Instagram, everywhere, all my favorite celebrities want me to vote, and they want to tell me to go vote, and some of them want me to vote so that they can be naked on YouTube or something,
Right.
and I just don't get it. One, I don't think that's honest. I don't think we want everybody to vote.
Really?
I
Expand
don't.
on that.
I think if you really don't want to vote, if it's not important to you, don't make yourself vote, because maybe there's other, because I obviously disagree. I'm not going to live my life that way. I like to vote. But if you don't want to vote, maybe I don't trust you to take that opinion seriously, and so maybe I don't want you to exercise that.
It's like telling somebody who's actively homeless to participate in capitalism, which is the only.
Yeah, why don't you just go get a job or
Yeah.
something? It's like the world is not going to be solved because we make people that don't want to vote.
Right.
However, I do think some of my ideologies would thrive if more people voted. I do think people that agree with me on a lot of issues specifically that we haven't necessarily even talked about, those people sometimes neglect voting. I think the world would be a more representative place if everybody voted. But if you really don't care to vote, COVID or not, I'm not going to beg you to vote. I'm not going to take my shirt off and beg you to go vote. because that's not what I want. Guys, that's been a crazy episode of Jacob V Weekly. Make sure you check us out on Spotify. Make sure you check us out on iTunes.
We're on Spotify?
Absolutely. We are on Google Podcasts. You can find original music by Jacob V wherever you buy
Wait, are you getting
or
checks?
stream music. And no, I'm not getting checks yet. Make sure that you subscribe on YouTube. We will be live streaming on Twitch and on Facebook in the near future. Be certain that you are joining us there, and thank you again.